And next, we're going to have Mr. Malak talk about your data analysts ready for the cloud.
Nope.
Nope? Okay.
All right, so about 2 or 3 years ago, we stopped talking about Hadoop and we started talking about the Hadoop ecosystem. That's because all these packages on top of Hadoop started piling on. And we're at a point now, the same with Spark. So we're going to talk about the ever-growing Spark ecosystem and how to navigate it, because it's a jungle out there. And so we're going to first look at our velocity here. And this is a chart of releases here. So it started out pretty slow. Actually, it doesn't even go back to the beginning. It started back in 2009. And then it became an Apache project, and Databricks was founded right around here. They got their act together, and then regularly, every 3 months, there's been a new release. The last release, 1.2, was mid-December, and they're voting on 1.3 right now. It'll probably come out mid-March. Looking at Jira tickets, within the last 2 months, there have been as many Jira tickets entered as in the 2 years of 2012 and 2013. So what are we going to do? How do we keep up and keep track of all these rapid changes? So these are all the ways I keep track. This is how I feed my blog. No matter where you are in the Spark world, you have to be subscribed to the 2 main mailing lists on Apache, User and Dev. That's just a minimum. And then this is tedious, but every morning, one of the things I do, one of the first things I do is I log into Apache Jira and I see what's new. With 1,000 tickets created over the last 2 months, there are 20 new tickets a day being created, and I will watch, and so that I get notified of important features that are being added. It's tedious, so if that's too tedious for you, you can just read my blog, and I'll show you the best of the best anyway. Conference videos, there are like 4 main conferences now, and it's easy to forget them. I mean, we've gotten used to Spark Summit over the last year and a half, but AmpCamp is still going on. They just had AmpCamp 5, and there's important stuff going on there. And then, if you haven't checked this out, this is like the hot new source of information, the Bay Area Spark Meetup. It's run by Databricks, actually, and they live stream and store their videos on YouTube. So I actually bring my Android to the gym and stick it up on the elliptical and watch those videos. And of course, the Strata 2 videos as well. Books. This book just came out yesterday. It's a great book. This is available on early access, various chapters, but the Dead Trees became available on Amazon yesterday. And then, of course, my book, which is coming out later this year. The MEEP early access will probably start in about a week. Twitter, until about 6 months ago, I always thought Twitter was a way to keep track of celebrities. Little did I know there was this data science and big data subculture going on. It's essentially like a link recommendation engine if you haven't taken a look at it. So I just searched here on data science, one good link after another. I always wondered how you could get important information in 140 characters. Well, the answer is it's just a link aggregator, sort of like stumble upon from the 90s or something. So it's kind of surprising when I tell people sometimes be on Twitter, there actually is important stuff going on. And this is one of my favorite secrets. Google Scholar alerts. You may have heard of Google alerts. Well, Google Scholar also has its own alerts. And so if you just tag an important landmark paper, like Matei's original RDD paper, you can get an email every time somebody cites it. So far, there are about 450 papers that cite Matei's paper, so that means about once every other day, you will be getting an email about cutting-edge research that is expanding what Spark can do. And finally, code repositories. AmpLab had just tons of projects going on, and they have 2. They have AmpLab, they have AmpLab Extras, and then Databricks has been pushing sparkpackages.org because they don't want too much stuff going into the core Apache project. They want to keep it small. So that has to be monitored as well if you really want to keep up. Okay, so that's how to keep up. Let's look at a snapshot of what our ecosystem looks like today. So we have Spark in the middle, the Apache Spark distribution. Is built on some basic dependencies, and then there are tons of add-ons you can add on top of Spark. So Spark itself only has these 5 components. You'll probably see lots of birthday cake diagrams that show 20 things hanging off the side of it, but really the Apache Spark distribution only has these 5 things. To run Spark, it actually requires 2 things. You can't really run Spark by itself. Well, you can if you're running on a single computer, but you need distributed storage and you need a cluster manager. The list of supported distributed storage is a fuzzy list. These 3 are supported in a first-class way. The list for cluster manager is a hard, fast list. These are the only 3 cluster managers that work. Standalone, which really just means Spark, I think it's a bad name because to me, standalone says it's not a cluster, it's just a single computer, but that's not the case. It's a cluster run by Spark, or Hadoop Yarn, or Apache Mesos. Now, for the add-ons, AmpLab is by far the most prolific source of add-ons, and there's also Spark packages that I mentioned. So I didn't even list all the AmpLab packages here. I mean, there are probably 4 or 5 times as many as what I've listed here, but I've taken some of the key ones and sort of grouped them in a sort of grouping. So these are what I call almost in Spark. Like they're of consideration to be included in the official Apache Spark distribution. SparkR is almost in there. It's listed on the Databricks website in a gray shaded color. And there's a flame war going on right now on the mailing list as to whether or not it should be part of it. Matei, among others, wants R to be a language that has first-class support in Spark, and other developers, they don't want to have the burden of having to support it forevermore. Index RDD is incredibly powerful. I'm surprised it didn't make it into the 1.3 cut. Not only is it an RDD that's indexed, it's also mutable. So that's been one of the, what I would think, Achilles heels of Spark is that RDDs are immutable following the line of functional programming, but when you have very big data, immutable isn't always so good. So index RDDs are both mutable and indexed. It's basically like a Java hash map. So if you need that, you can get it over at AmpLab. And then BlinkDB, I almost didn't put this in here, but it's on the Databricks website in that same grayed up color as SparkR. But BlinkDB to this day still only supports the old Shark, which was deprecated a year ago. I don't think it's been brought up to Spark SQL yet. There are some important AmpLab projects that touch the core of Spark. So I talked about Tachyon several times, presentations and blogs. It's a way to avoid JVM and garbage collection because it puts data into Linux C RAM disk. Succinct is built on top of Tachyon. It provides a key value store. Sparrow is completely separate. It's really interesting. It's a very efficient scheduler and doubles the performance of Spark, but it's only been integrated with Spark 0.8 so far. So it's on their list. People have been asking for it, but there are just so many priorities to get stuff into Spark that it hasn't been done yet. And then just end user applications or top level applications, bioinformatics for Atom, and energy usage for Carrot. And then machine learning. There's a lot of stuff out of AmpLab for machine learning. First and foremost being MLBase. MLBase has 3 layers, ML Optimizer, MLI, and MLI. MLI, of course, has made it into the Apache project, but ML Optimizer and MLI are still in AmpLab. And then there are these other projects, among others, that are unrelated to MLBase. MLMatrix is matrix operations. Coco doubles the performance of machine learning through better planning of tasks, distribution of tasks. And Velox is a packaging of machine learning pipelines and deploying them. So it's not enough to monitor Spark Jira. There's at least one ticket elsewhere, and that's in the Hive Jira. Hive on Spark is a ticket over at the Hive. So you might want to watch this. There are already 152 watchers on it. Not quite done And then finally, Spark packages. There's a lot of, it's kind of a mishmash of stuff, a lot of drivers, because they have the Spark has this new driver model in 1.3, actually it started in 1.2, where you can connect different data sources to Spark SQL. So a lot of that stuff is in Spark packages, but some other stuff that's in there, Sport, Pig on Spark, HBase connectors, the connector to H2O machine learning, a connector to MongoDB, and then Thunder and Lightning is really interesting because this is an add-on to Spark Streaming and D3.js to visualize your streams. This is done by those people doing the neuroscience studies. If you've watched any Strata or Spark Summit, you've seen these guys talk with the mouse walking on a treadmill. But the interesting thing is that you see them talk and they keep advancing the state of the art of Spark continuously. They're not stopping. And one of the most recent advances they have is they've put out this Thunder and Lightning package. So that is our ecosystem, and I'll turn it over to the next speaker.